they chose to celebrate a 3-day festival that would give thanks to God for their blessings. See, Thanksgiving is not really rooted in a happy time. It was actually rooted in the choice to be happy and to be thankful in spite of some difficult things that they were encountering. Not everything was like they wanted it to be. They did not have lavish wealth. They were not enjoying, extras. They were just thankful for the meager things, the blessings that God had given them, even in the midst of their struggles. I think about 2 Timothy chapter 3, and beginning with verse number 1, how that the Apostle Paul wrote, "Know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful." Unthankful. This was a sign of the times that the Apostle Paul declared to Timothy in his second letter that would indeed be given as a recognition that Jesus might not be that far away from his second coming. This was also Paul's last letter that he would pen. He was writing this from prison, they believe, as he was watching them prepare to execute him for his, and I can't remember the exact charges they gave, but in 2 Timothy was written, they believe, during that time, as you can see evidence of in 2 Timothy 4. So he's laying out some things that will be signs of the last days. Now there are many other things, and of course we're not getting into prophecy tonight, but many other passages that record signs of the times. But it appears that Paul is addressing signs of the times that will be evident not just in the world, but in the church. And one of the descriptions that he gives is that people would become unthankful. Unthankful. I couldn't help but think today, as I was considering the story of the pilgrims, they intentionally chose to be thankful rather than making the choice to complain and gripe about what they didn't have. They intentionally made this decision that we're going to give thanks to God for our blessings. Otherwise, why would they have even needed to celebrate a Thanksgiving? What would be the big deal? If you had everything that you ever wanted, what would be the point? If you were always with a thankful heart, why would you set apart a specific day to give thanks? It appears evident that they had to be very intentional about giving thanks, because the temptation was to wallow in their self-pity and to whine and complain about what they did not have. I want us to think about the fact that it's very easy for us to fall into that, and we're not nearly as bad off as the pilgrims were. We don't have near the struggles that they had. Even the poorest among us still have it very well compared to the way the pilgrims were trying to survive. And yet the fact is, so oftentimes we tend to have this tendency to just stay in a constant state of complaint. They called this to mind specifically, realizing that they needed to be thankful. The truth of the matter is, that's the kind of world we're living in, where it's easy for us to complain, and you think about it, you turn on the news and the bad news, that's what they're going to promote the most. The negative things, that's what it seems to be pushed the most. And the reason is because that's, in spite of what people say, that's what they want to hear. If you went all positive, news networks would go out of business. And you can say what you want to, you like it too. We actually like bad news. I don't know why, but we like bad news. We want to see the damage from the hurricane. We want to see the different things that are being talked about. We want to hear the complaints about what the party that we don't like, how bad the other side really is. We want to hear that. We can say we don't, but we do. We enjoy those. It's because we have this tendency to remain in a state of complaint. Let us not be the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Apostle Paul in 2 Timothy chapter 3. That we would not be thankful. It's so important that we realize that there is a very dangerous tendency here for us to simply fall into this place that we don't acknowledge God's blessings. And I don't know about you, but there have been times, sometimes in raising kids, you wonder, do you even really know? And they don't. What they have. And you know what it makes me want to do? Not give them more blessings. We joke about it. We talk about it in the Christmas stories about them being good around the holidays so that they can expect more presents under the tree. Part of that is being thankful. And sometimes when they're not so thankful, it makes me think maybe you need to experience a little less blessing. But the truth of the matter is they're not the only ones. Because we've got it far better than we realize sometimes. And it's important that we remain in a state of thanksgiving. In Habakkuk chapter number 3, we're not 100% certain of the timeline. Some people believe it may have been somewhere around the time of Jehoiakim, but we're not really for sure. But it appears Judah has already begun to at least experience some of the negative things that were going to happen as a result of previous kings leading them into sin and the nation of Israel not being where they needed to be with God. But Habakkuk concludes this book, I should say, in chapter number 3, and beginning with verse number 17, with these words. Though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength. He will make my feet like deer's feet, and He will make me walk on my high hills. Understand what Habakkuk is stating here, and if you'll keep that screen up for just a moment, I want us to consider what he's trying to let us know. It's the title essentially tonight. You think about what a savings account is designed for. It's the rainy day fund. It's the indication that maybe when not enough is coming in, I got a little bit to fall back on so I can cover the basic necessities. If I'm having to dip into my savings account, things are not good at all. It's really bad. Because that means that I'm not able to cover my basic needs. The extras go to the side for a while. And even then, it's still not enough. I'm still not surviving. If I'm eating from my savings account, if I'm dipping in to that account. But here's the thing. Habakkuk finds himself essentially in that very same place. Where the fig tree isn't blossoming. There's no fruit on the trees. The labor of the olive is resulting in nothing. There's no food in the fields. There's no flocks in the fold. There's no herds in the stalls. There's nothing. He doesn't have even his basic necessities. He's not talking about the luxuries. He's not talking about the extras. He's not talking about the optional things. He's talking about food. You've got to have it to survive. And they didn't have a government that would help step in during that time. It either came in on the field or you didn't eat. There was nothing that could happen. And yet, what did he say? I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. He didn't say he felt like it. I guarantee you he didn't. He did not say at all that he was enjoying being without the excess. He did not at all have any pleasure and not experience the abundant, lavish luxuries that they had been accustomed to. But he made the choice. I'm still going to be thankful. I'm still going to rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. And he realizes in verse number 19 that even in spite of the fact that he's struggling, God's still his strength. Habakkuk understood that, hey, what we're dealing with right now is the result of our nation's sin. Judah had sinned. They were getting ready to go into exile. He realized we're experiencing this because of decisions that we've made. And yet, he says, God's still my strength. I'm not walking away from him. I'm not going to leave my relationship with him to the side, as Brother Vincent's already reminded us tonight. And he still believes God's going to take care of him. He's going to make my feet like deer's feet. They're going to be sure-footed. He's going to walk on the high hills. He's going to be able to tower over everything. He's going to make it just fine. It may not look great right now. He may not have all the excess that he wants. He may not even have all his basic necessities. But it's not going to rob him of his worship. And it will not be the thief of his heart of gratitude. He has determined, I'm going to remain faithful, not only in my service to God, but in my expression of thankfulness. So much so, and I want to dig into this a little bit more to really see it, because I don't have all the answers here. So much so that he concludes the book of Habakkuk by saying this: to the chief musician with my stringed instruments. It's as if he was writing this book and saying, let's let this be the inspiration of our song. We're going to go ahead and keep singing even though things aren't going great. We're going to go ahead and keep praising God in spite of the fact that I don't have everything I want right now. In spite of the fact that my circumstances are not what I want them to be. I may be dipping into my savings account and it may be running low, but I'm still going to keep praising God. The key is to commit to our heart of gratitude. Do we have that video ready? The video ready? Let's go ahead and play that video. There's a video clip that I want you guys to see real quick.
Give thanks for the good days. When the traffic lights all turn green, when promotions come and bad habits are broken. Give thanks for warm meals and the company of friends. Give thanks for undeniable blessings and clear direction, when the music floods your soul and the worship songs flow without effort. Give thanks for coffee and clothing and hope that the two never mix. Give thanks for the mother who battles daily in prayer, for the father working 3 jobs, for the brothers and sisters who build blanket forts and read bedtime stories. Give thanks for sons and daughters and all our family who remind us of what truly matters. Give thanks for the stranger who holds the door open and the lifelong friend who holds you when life is broken. Give thanks for the hard days, for the phone call that brings life crashing down, for jobs lost and friendships fallen into conflict. Give thanks for the anger that reminds us we are human, and the tears that express more than words could ever fathom. Give thanks, though the pain is overwhelming, your energy spent, your spirit fallen, and your only option is to fall to your knees before your Holy Father and cry out, God, please help me. For in that moment, His power is made perfect. His love is made evident. He becomes your strength, your comfort, and your salvation. Give thanks for the power of redemption, from Genesis to Revelation, for the endless promises of a God who would rather sacrifice His Son than give up on His children. For nail-pierced hands, for brilliant dawns, for the cool touch of rain and the simplicity of a quiet day. For all things great and small, let us give thanks.
As we stand right now and they come back to music, the ultimate fact is, and I liked what this video brings to light, ultimately, our difficulties, and I know I've preached this a lot recently, seems like, ultimately our difficulties give God an opportunity to do something. You see, and I've said this in the past, not recently, but I've said this in the past. We all want the miracle, but none of us would sign up for the problem. But you can't have a miracle until you have an impossibility. You can't have a miracle unless there's an impossibility. And so, even before we experience the miracle, we need to start praising God for the opportunity for His strength to be made perfect. I heard a preacher, he's not one of us, but I heard a preacher one time make a statement that every time he started facing struggles that he didn't know what to do, he got excited. He said, at this point in my life, and he'd been around a while, he said, at this point in life now, when I face something and I have no idea what to do, I start to get excited because I know God's getting ready to show up. Now that's faith. You think about that. That's faith. Because he knows God's going to intervene. He's going to take care of the situation. David said in all the time that he had lived there, and all the time that he had lived, he said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor a seed begging bread. Now, Paul said that he had been in hunger often, in fastings often. He had been in some pretty bad circumstances, and yet he still trusted in God. Trust, as I think we referred to this past weekend, really is not all about everything that God does, but it's more about the fact that we know He's still in control, and that whatever's happening, God doesn't let anything get outside of His control. I can't remember, sometimes I forget whether it was something I preached or I'm studied to preach this weekend, but I believe I referred to this last weekend in Romans 8:28. We know all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to His purpose. But I think what we always think is, we're very self-centered when we read this verse. We think about this verse and say, well, I know God's working it out for my good. Hold on. That's not what that verse says. It says, we know that all things work together for good. Not necessarily your good. Now, don't get me wrong. In the end, as long as you're faithful to God, it will be for your good. Because as long as you stay faithful to God, God's going to take you to heaven and everything's going to be great there. But not everything is all being worked out for your good, but it is being worked out for His. He's got a reason for it. He's got something He's accomplishing in the middle of all of it. You may not ever see the reasoning behind it, but God is working things out for good. I want us to just come around the front for just a few moments as we close out this service this evening and just ask God to help us to commit, to be thankful during the season. As you begin to play right now, we get ready to sing here in just a moment. Let's begin to ask God to help us to commit to a spirit of thankfulness and gratitude this season. Let's pray. Of live stream. We are so honored that you would give us of your time. If you enjoy what you saw and heard today, we would like to invite you to be with us in person at 2560 Eaton Rapids Road here in the city of Lansing. Our weekly service schedule consists of our Sunday morning service at 11 o'clock and our Wednesday evening midweek Bible study at 7. If you have any questions or if you would like to receive a personal Bible study, you can contact the church office at 517-394-5433. Or you can go to lifechristianchurch.org/contact and select the button that reads Schedule Appointment with Pastor. We hope that you will also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to remain aware of our upcoming events. You can also find out more information concerning the church at lifechristianchurch.org. Thank you once again for joining us today on our live stream, and we hope to see you in person at the church real soon.